The movie starts with Jess, an injured and badly hurt woman walking quickly down the streets, fear in her eyes. She is bleeding from her head, whimpering and breathing heavily. The woman Jessica continuously looks over her shoulders as if being chased by someone. She arrives at an apartment, grabs a key from under a plant pot, and makes her way into the house. Inside, she immediately washes her face and then goes into a room to change her clothes. While looking around the room, Jess comes across a ring box with an engagement ring inside. Suddenly, the door creaks open, and Jess becomes wary of potential danger. As she stealthily walks up to the door and peeks, she sees a group of armed individuals, searching the apartment carefully. Making no haste, Jess quickly rushes to the nearest window to make her escape. On her way out, she steals a hoodie from a mechanic and then continues her run. Nightfall approaches, and Jess is still nowhere near finding a destination. She gets in the back of a truck and covers herself up, in hopes of not being found. Luckily for her, when the owner of the vehicle gets into his car, he doesn't notice Jess, and so he begins to drive. Relieved that she hasn't been caught, Jess shuts her eyes and the scene cuts to the morning. In this scene, we see a woman named Elsa place a weapon on a table while looking sternly at the mirror. On the mirror are some self-motivation tips that Elsa appears to need at the moment. As Elsa tries to relax, there's a sudden knock on the door. Elsa wonders who has come to visit so early, so she goes to see who it is. At the door, she sees her impromptu guest, Raymond, and he's brought wine. Elsa thinks it's a little too early to have alcohol, but Raymond thinks otherwise, as he goes on to list the several qualities of the drink. Eventually, Elsa lets him in, and the two begin to talk. Raymond wants her to sign a contract. He claims the contract is going to float operational expenses for some time, and so they need their best in it. As Elsa takes the pen from him, her hands begin to shake. Only Elsa notices this, and Raymond doesn't, as he's too busy pitching the project to her. On the other hand, Jess gets out of the vehicle she's hiding in when the driver parks. Before she leaves, however, she takes a few things inside the car that she might need. When she sees the man returning, she quickly heads into the forest while the man gets into his vehicle. In the woods, Jess, feeling a bit safe and eased of her tension, reduces her walking pace. She sits by a condemned vehicle in the forest, finally having a chance to catch her breath. Jess begins to look through a map while she eats some cookies. When she finishes, she washes her hands and then takes cover in a house there in the woods. The next day at dawn, Jess wakes up. She's about to leave when she changes her mind and decides to go inside the house and steal some food. In the process, she's caught by an armed man who teases her about not checking the expiry dates of the food she's trying to steal. Jess is startled. She gently turns around and instantly becomes terrified. She never expected to see a man stand in front of her with a gun. She immediately apologizes and returns the cans to the shelf. Jess begs the man to forgive her for trespassing, hoping he doesn't hurt her. But quite interestingly, the man doesn't seem upset, and instead, he invites her for breakfast. Stunned by the offer, she hesitates as she begins to process the stranger's sudden kindness, but the old man urges her to follow him. Jess has breakfast with the kind couple. Janie, the man's wife, inquires if she lives on the streets, but Jess claims she's just traveling. Janie then sees an engagement ring on her finger, which just makes her more curious. However, Jess is unable to answer her questions properly. Janie then suggests that Jess take a shower. She tells Jess that there are clean towels she can use and directs her to the bathroom. Jess is thankful for the offer and leaves the couple as she makes her way to the bathroom. In the bathroom, Jess leaves the shower running to feign taking a bath. She takes a few pills from their medicine cabinet, uses their toothpaste, and immediately heads out. On her way out, she bumps into Janie. The woman is surprised that Jess is through already, but Jess claims she skipped the shower and just wants to continue her journey. Janie then informs Jess that her husband Frank is waiting for her in the driveway, and they want to offer her a ride to help her arrive at her destination quicker. Jess rejects the offer, claiming that she prefers to walk, but Janie insists. Jess meets Frank outside servicing his vehicle. Frank asks where exactly she's headed, and she tells him Portview. While the two talk, Jess gets curious and asks why the man is helping her, but he doesn't give her a specific answer. The journey begins, and it's a smooth one. It's so calm and peaceful, and it causes Jess to fall asleep throughout the ride. She wakes up moments later to Frank telling her that they've reached the end of the road. Jess immediately becomes uneasy as she rushes to get out of the vehicle. Frank is concerned as they haven't arrived anywhere specific, and Jess is already rushing to exit the vehicle. He asks her to at least accept what he and Janie packed for her: a winter jacket, a pair of Janie's old boots, a blanket, and some food. Jess is moved by their generosity and is left speechless. Frank advises her to come live with them while she figures out herself. He even suggests that she can help out on the property as well, since she had earlier mentioned her familiarity with animals. Jess rejects the offer. She feels they have already done too much for her. Frank, seeing that he failed at convincing her, bids her farewell and she leaves, disappearing into the darkness. Next, we see Elsa getting dressed for work. However, before she leaves, she has a meeting with Laura. In the process of preparing, she falls and injures herself badly. Elsa struggles to put herself together, dresses the wound, and proceeds to meet with Laura. The two begin to talk about a disease called ALS. Laura asks when Elsa got diagnosed, and she says it's been 6 months since. She asks Elsa if her family is aware, and she says no. Laura explains how the ailment makes a person feel like a prisoner in their body. This woman seems to be speaking from experience, as she further explains how it can take one through the phase of experiencing all the stages of grief and mourning their old life. As Elsa listens, she keeps her head bowed, avoiding eye contact with the woman speaking. After Laura finishes talking, Sal urges Elsa to tell her parents, as she would have to do so eventually. Laura cuts in and asks Elsa if she's contemplating her life. Elsa admits to this, but the woman encourages her not to let the misery overwhelm her, but to come to a point of acceptance. Afterwards, Elsa and Vince, who are working together, talk over the phone. Vince teases about spending more time with Elsa than he does with his wife. Elsa, on the other hand, is still not over the fact that Vince found the time to even start a family. As the two talk, they realize how tasking and demanding their job is. They get so swallowed up in it that sometimes they lose connection to the real world. On the other hand, Jess, who has been walking for so long with no destination, arrives at a bar and walks in. Inside, she meets a woman who immediately informs her that they're not open yet. Jess lets her know that she's only there in hopes of finding a job, but they're not hiring, so the woman claims. Jess then proceeds to ask for a drink, and the woman offers her a glass of whiskey. The two women toast to a new life and clink their glasses. Eventually, the woman offers Jess a cleaning job. She introduces herself as Molly, and Jess introduces herself as Janie. Meanwhile, Elsa is running out of time to catch Jess, who is on the run. Raymond, her superior, is getting aggravated as Elsa is taking too long to catch her. However, in her defense, she lacks the vital resources she needs. In her opinion, they should be cross-checked with the local authorities, but Raymond thinks this can be handled remotely and gives her 5 hours to get the job done. Later, that night, Jess prepares for her shift at the bar. She's changing into some clothes when she sees a rash on her ankle. She instantly recalls when she and her boyfriend had taken a dog in to live with them. Her boyfriend had protested against this, but Jess insisted. She had found the stray dog and instantly fell in love with it, thus the desire to keep it. As time went by, Ian, Jessica's boyfriend, developed a rash on his skin and showed it to her. The rash is similar to the one Jess has now. After, she begins to do the dishes when Molly walks in. She asks Jess if she has a partner she's running from, as she had seen a ring earlier. The question slightly catches her by surprise, but she reveals that she had a boyfriend. Molly then tells Jess that she has a husband who didn't treat her well and used to. She shares her experience with Jess, her struggles in marriage, and how she and her husband became incompatible. Though she struggled to leave at first, she made up her mind and took the bold step. Molly then offers Jessica a drink, as she claims liquor heals wounds. After they close the bar for the night, Molly offers Jess a place to spend the night in her apartment. She further inquires what Jess has planned for her future, as the town is small and doesn't have much to offer. Although in her opinion, the town has good people. Jess claims that she hasn't been out much and would love to see the world, an idea that intrigues Molly. We go back to Elsa, who is still struggling deeply with her illness and her work life. That morning, she struggles with her shirt button when she gets a call that adds to her frustration. However, it's a phone call she has been hoping for. There's finally a lead on Jessica. Elsa instantly makes her way to the address given to her. She arrives at the place fully geared up in a protective suit. Inside the house, she begins calling for Janie Lerner. Elsa claims that she's there because she believes Janie has been in contact with a woman, Jessica Murdoch, who is carrying a distinct strain of the Ebola virus. As Elsa speaks, no one is in sight. She carefully observes the apartment and continues speaking audibly, claiming that Janie had contacted the hospital for symptoms like body hemorrhaging. In the kitchen, Elsa sees a splash of blood in the sink, and then she sees someone outside and immediately makes her way to them. Elsa goes outside, calling for Janie, but again, no one is in sight. Eventually, Elsa finds Janie in the corner, coughing loudly. She appears to be in so much pain, and Elsa slowly makes her way to her. As she approaches the coughing woman, she suddenly turns to Elsa. Janie isn't the same anymore. A lot has changed about her physically. She now has a striking resemblance to a zombie. Elsa is immediately terrified as she attempts to retreat, but Frank grabs her from behind. The couple are about to attack her, but fortunately for Elsa, she comes prepared. She takes out her weapon and uses it on the two, who collapse instantly. In a flashback scene, we see Jess and Ian. Ian has been coughing all night, and she turns him over to check if he's okay. He is not okay, to her dismay. What had appeared to be just normal rashes have now become worse and are eating up Ian's flesh and spreading quickly. Instantly panicked, Jess calls for help, and an ambulance arrives at the scene. She sits by him through the ride, offering him the support he needs. All of a sudden, the ambulance stops, and two men wearing protective gear come through the back of the vehicle and take Jess away. Apparently, the dog Jess and Ian kept in their custody was kept in a secured laboratory. They found the dog with fleas, and so the virus mutated and found a new host. The bigger issue now is, there's no cure. Jess has been locked up, and Elsa asks for more details about the virus from Raymond. Elsa is upset that Raymond knew about the virus, yet allowed her to talk to people without protection. However, Raymond tells her that, to their knowledge, the disease isn't aerosol-based, but only contagious through direct contact like blood, saliva, and vomit. Raymond emphasizes that they need to catch her, as she's asymptomatic, a healthy carrier. She's important, so he claims. Jessica has been locked up in a discreet location, with no idea that she's spreading disease, but with the idea that she's on the run for. One day, when Jess is brought food in her cell, the security guard notices that the room is pitch black and believes that she has dismantled the light in her cell. When the man reports this, he is ordered to enter and investigate the room. As he enters the room, Jess, who has been hiding by the wall, stealthily sneaks out. However, the man catches up with her. It's an intense struggle between the two. Jess desperately wants to escape, but she has to get through him first. Only one can come out of there alive, and luckily for Jess, it's her. She pierces a broken glass on his neck, and he falls to the ground instantly. Blood gushes out of him, with some of it splashing on Jessica's face. She's in tears as she realizes what she has done to the man. However, she still needs to make her escape. Jessica rushes towards the exit, her face bloody and her eyes wary. On her way out, she sees Ian in another room, and he immediately rushes to her, but the two are separated by a transparent glass partition. He's bald, and his skin is a mess, rough, scaly, and severely inflamed. The skin inflammation has spread, covering his face and body, making him almost unrecognizable with a gaunt and haunting appearance. Ian begins to plead for help. He begs Jessica to help him escape from there. Jess is horrified by his appearance, but at the same time, deeply concerned. She believes that it's the people who have trapped them there that have done that to him. In a state of urgency, she begins to push the door back and forth by the handle, hoping to burst it open, but it won't budge. Suddenly, Ian begins to cough, and then he lands on the floor. Just then, the alarms go off and begin blaring. Jessica immediately senses that they might be looking for her already. She apologizes to Ian, who is lying motionless on the floor, and she flees. Immediately after she leaves, Ian, who is lying on the floor, lets out a roar. On the other hand, Elsa discovers the truth behind the operation, so she makes up her mind to opt out of it. Raymond reveals to her that ADN-Gen Technologies worked together in conjunction with the US government behind the virus. Elsa is shocked by this revelation. Raymond further tells her that ADN-Gen has contacted them, and they are tasked with finding Jessica and ensuring that the link between her, the dog, and ADN-Gen is erased. Elsa doesn't want to be a part of this. She tells Raymond that she's sick with ALS. But this isn't news to Raymond. He already knew. He believes that there isn't more to life than their jobs. He asks her if she's going to retire early and do nothing else with her life than watch TV all day, while her body shuts down limb by limb. On that note, he instructs Elsa to find Jessica and bring her to them, alive or not. The movie shifts back to the present day. That morning, Jess is about to head out, but decides to check on Molly first. She calls on her but gets no response. Jess then goes to her room and stands by the door, saying that she has a bad hangover and wants to get something from the store that can help. However, no response yet again. Just as she heads out, we see Molly inside the room. She has gotten the virus and is slowly losing her life. She weakly calls for Jess, but the sound of the TV won't let her quiet scream for help be heard. Meanwhile, Elsa has a new lead on Jessica. A man had made a video at the bar Jess got hired in and posted it on his socials. In the video he made, Jessica is in the background. Vince shows this to Elsa. However, they don't have the exact location of Jess. They also know that Jess became friends with Molly, but they don't have Molly's exact location either. This just aggravates Elsa. Left with no other solution, Elsa asks Vince to direct her to the bar. As Elsa makes her way to the bar, she gets a pleasant surprise. There is Jessica, just a few steps away from her car. Jessica had seen a cat through a show glass and had stopped to admire it. Elsa can't believe it. She tells Vince and Raymond immediately, and Raymond instructs Elsa not to get Jessica out of her sight while Vince calls for backup. While Elsa is gearing up for protection in the vehicle, the cat Jess is busy admiring, begins to scratch its paws on the glass, drawing Jessica's attention to the car behind her. Terrified, Jessica takes a deep breath, turns around and then begins to head towards the other direction. Elsa hurriedly makes her way out of the vehicle and goes after Jessica. She calls out for the young lady, but Jessica only increases her walking pace. She's frightened and almost in tears. Elsa immediately takes out her weapon and demands that Jessica freeze, but Jessica instantly runs away. Elsa tries to do the same, but her muscles are not strong enough, so she falls in the process. By the time Elsa gets on her feet, Jessica disappears. Elsa has injured her palm and torn her gloves, but her haunt for Jessica won't end. Jessica returns to Molly's apartment. She yells that she needs to leave, as she senses the danger she might be in. Getting no response, she makes her way to Molly's room, and there she finds Molly in a horrible state. Jessica is struck with fear and immediately runs out of the room. On the other hand, Elsa, Vince, and Raymond are desperately trying to find Molly's apartment, but they have no clue or leads to help them. It's a very tense and desperate moment, and with each passing second, the pressure intensifies. Back at Molly's house, Jessica is hurriedly trying to put her things together and leave the apartment. Suddenly, she begins to hear strange sounds. The atmosphere becomes eerie, and of course, instead of leaving, Jessica makes her way back to Molly's room. As she slowly approaches the door, Molly bursts out and begins to attack Jessica. Jess flees in fear as she rushes down the stairs and rushes to the kitchen. Molly is coming at her quickly, but Jessica grabs a pan and uses it to defend herself. She hits Molly across the face so hard and she passes out. Jessica doesn't stop there. She continues to hit her several times, screaming at the top of her voice. Jess is in tears and covered in Molly's blood, but then she realizes that her hair is beginning to fall off. The next day, Elsa and her team find Molly's apartment. She arrives there, and when she hits the doorbell, she gets no response. While waiting anxiously for a response at the door, she peeks through the door and sees Molly's body on the floor. Instantly aware of the situation, Elsa goes back to her car and puts on the protective gear. Raymond advises her to wait for backup and not go in yet, but Elsa wants to do otherwise. Eventually, Elsa finds Jessica. She tells Jessica that she's a healthy carrier of the virus that she's spreading without her knowledge. However, Jessica isn't that much of a healthy carrier anymore. The symptoms are showing in her body. Elsa urges her to come peacefully, that she only wants to help her. Elsa ends up firing at Jessica when she attempts to run towards her. After getting shot, Jessica runs away and Elsa is immediately in pursuit of her. Determined to stop Jessica from leaving her sight, she begins to fire more bullets at her. Though Elsa isn't steady in feet, she's determined to prevent Jessica from escaping. When she gets closer to Jessica, she lets her know that they need her blood, and they will get it by any means necessary. Jessica bursts out yelling that she never meant for any of this to happen. She never meant to hurt anybody. However, she refuses to go back to the place they had initially taken her to. Jessica is in tears, pleading with Elsa. She can't afford to go back to where they had kept her before. However, Elsa tells her that, unfortunately, this is her fate, and she can't run from it. If there's one thing the two ill women have in common, it's that they just wanted an opportunity to see the world, but have been denied that by predicaments they did not cause themselves. As Jessica turns around and is about to escape, Elsa has no other choice, so she shoots her. As Jessica falls, Elsa bursts into tears. The aftermath of everything that has occurred kicks in. As Jessica is lying on the floor, life escaping her, Elsa reaches to her and holds her hand, a somber moment between the two. As time passes, all the records of Jessica and the virus have been cleared, and Elsa tries to put her life back in order. One day, Sal comes to visit. He has come to offer her the emotional support she needs as she starts the journey of living with ALS. He lets her know that he understands that the changes are big, and that the speed at which these changes come terrifies her. The fact that she might never live a normal life again. But Sal tries to reassure her and let her know that there's still a lot of good living left to do. Sal's kind words are comforting. They give strength, and she bursts into tears. Sal tries to change the mood to a lighter one, and so he changes the subject. However, he begins to cough so hard that it catches Elsa's attention. She looks at the man in front of her sternly, terrified of the unknown. One can only hope that there isn't a sequel to this tragedy. Is Elsa going to have to do it all over again?